I'm Natalie, 35. The sight of my 8-year-old son, Danny, sitting at the far end of that restaurant table, watching my nephew slice into perfectly cooked steaks while my sister Rebecca pushed a basket of bread toward him, is burned into my memory forever. "We didn't order anything for your son," she said with that fake smile I'd seen my entire life. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I simply stood up, helped Danny put on his jacket, grabbed his backpack, and walked us both out of Romano's steakhouse while my entire family laughed behind us. What they didn't know was that their laughter would cost them exactly $3,000. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt completely humiliated by the people who were supposed to love you most. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. Let me back up and tell you how we got to this moment. It was Mom's 70th birthday, and I'd been working late at the accounting firm where I manage small business portfolios. The monthly reports were due, and my boss had been breathing down my neck all week. When I realized I might not make it to dinner on time, I called Rebecca. "Hey, could you pick up Danny from school with your boys? I might be 30 minutes late to dinner." "Of course, Nat. The boys go to the same school anyway. We'll see you there." I should have known better. Rebecca has always been the golden child, the real estate agent with the perfect Instagram life and 2 sons who could do no wrong. Meanwhile, I've been the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who quietly handles things when they fall apart. My boss finally released me only 20 minutes past my usual time, so I wasn't even that late. As I rushed into Romano's, I spotted our family table immediately. The warm lighting, the elegant atmosphere, everyone dressed in their birthday finest. But something was wrong with the picture. Danny sat isolated at the very end of the large round table, still in his school uniform, while his cousins, ages 10 and 12, were halfway through what looked like $40 ribeye steaks. In front of each of my nephews sat elaborate desserts, chocolate cake with gold leaf garnish, and in front of my son, nothing but a wicker basket of dinner rolls. Well, at least now I knew exactly where I stood in the family hierarchy. Apparently, it was somewhere below bread service. "Sorry I'm late," I said, approaching the table where my family was deep into their feast. Mom looked up, diamond earrings catching the restaurant's soft lighting. "Oh, Natalie, we went ahead and ordered since you were running behind." Rebecca smiled that practiced real estate agent smile. "We got Danny some bread. He seemed perfectly happy with it." I looked at my son, who was sitting quietly with his hands folded in his lap, watching his cousins eat. 8 years old, and he'd already learned not to complain when life wasn't fair. "Danny, are you ready to go?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "But we just got here," Rebecca protested. "Sit down, order something. We're about to do the birthday toast." Funny how the birthday toast could wait for me, but dinner service couldn't. "Actually, we have other plans," I said, helping Danny with his jacket. "Other plans?" Mom's voice carried that wounded tone she'd perfected over the years. "Yes, plans that include Danny actually eating dinner." As we walked toward the exit, I heard Rebecca's voice behind us. "Seriously, she's making a scene over bread?" The laughter that followed us out the door was like ice water in my veins. In the parking lot, Danny looked up at me with those serious brown eyes that were far too wise for an 8-year-old. "Mom, did I do something wrong?" My heart cracked a little. "No, baby, you did absolutely nothing wrong. I drove straight to the Capitol Grill, the most expensive restaurant in town. If Danny was going to have a memorable dinner, it was going to be for all the right reasons." "Table for 2? The hostess asked. "Yes, please." "Your best table." As we were seated, Danny's eyes widened at the elegant atmosphere. Crystal glasses, white tablecloths, the kind of service that makes you feel important. "Can I really order anything?" he asked, studying the menu with the concentration of a Supreme Court justice. "Anything your heart desires." While Danny deliberated between filet mignon and lobster, I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Time to teach my family a lesson about priorities. The additional credit card I'd given Mom 3 years ago was about to become a very expensive education. First National Bank customer service. "How can I help you?" "I need to cancel a card immediately. Number ending in 4847. "Certainly. May I ask the reason?" "Family emergency," I said, which wasn't technically a lie. My family's understanding of basic human decency was definitely an emergency. While Danny savored every bite of his perfectly prepared filet mignon, I watched him discover what it felt like to matter. The waiter treated him like a young gentleman, explaining the different sides, making sure his water glass stayed full. 3 years. 3 years I'd been subsidizing my family's lifestyle with that credit card, originally intended for Mom's necessities after Dad passed. Groceries, utilities, medical expenses. That was the agreement. Somehow, necessities had evolved into designer shopping trips and restaurants that charged more for wine than I spent on groceries in a month. My phone started buzzing around 8:30. First Rebecca, then Mom, then Rebecca again. I turned it face down and focused on my son, who was telling me about his science project between bites of chocolate soufflé. "This is the best restaurant ever, Mom. You deserve the best, sweetheart. Don't ever forget that." By the time we finished dinner, I had 17 missed calls and 26 text messages. Around 9:15, a notification popped up on my banking app. "Transaction declined, $3,127, Romano's Steakhouse." There it was. They'd tried to use my card to pay for their celebration, just as I'd expected. I turned off my phone completely and focused on Danny, who was asking if we could take some of his chocolate cake home. Priorities, I thought. Some people had them, others clearly didn't. The drive home was peaceful. Danny fell asleep in his car seat, exhausted from the emotional evening and the rich dinner. I carried him inside, tucked him into bed, and finally turned my phone back on. The messages were exactly what I'd expected. Panic, anger, demands for explanations, but I didn't know how they'd managed to pay that bill. And honestly, I didn't care. All I cared about was that they'd finally experienced the same humiliation they'd put my son through. Have you ever experienced that moment when you finally realize your worth? When you stop accepting treatment you wouldn't tolerate for your own child? Let me know in the comments what you think happened next, because tomorrow morning brought a confrontation I never saw coming. Rebecca was pounding on my door at 7:15 the next morning, and she did not look like her usual polished real estate agent self. Her hair was thrown into a messy bun, her makeup hastily applied, and she looked like she'd barely slept. "We need to talk," she announced, pushing past me into my apartment. "Good morning to you too. Coffee?" "Don't be cute, Natalie. What the hell happened last night?" I poured myself coffee with deliberate calm. "You mean when you treated my son like he was invisible? Or when you all laughed as we left? He had bread. Children eat bread. Children also eat actual dinner. Revolutionary concept, I know." Rebecca's face flushed red. "You deliberately sabotaged Mom's birthday dinner." I removed my child from a humiliating situation. If that sabotaged anything, the problem wasn't me. She started pacing my small living room like a caged animal. "Do you have any idea what you cost us last night?" Here we go. The real issue. "I cost you?" "Rebecca, I didn't order $3,000 worth of food and wine. You did. With your credit card, which was supposed to be for Mom's groceries and medications, not your wine collection." The silence stretched between us. Through my kitchen window, I could see Mrs. Martinez next door, watering her flowers, normal Sunday morning life continuing, while mine finally reached its breaking point. "How long?" I asked. "How long what? How long have you been using that card for luxury expenses?" Rebecca couldn't meet my eyes. "Mom said you wanted to help the family." "Help, yes. Fund your lifestyle while you exclude my son? No. Danny's fine. He's a resilient kid." And there it was. The casual dismissal of my child's feelings that summed up everything wrong with our family dynamic. You know what's funny, Rebecca? You're absolutely right. Danny is resilient. He's had to be, growing up around people who think he deserves less than his cousins. That's not true. I walked to my desk and pulled out the last 6 months of credit card statements. Let's see. Romano's $400. Nordstrom $600. The spa weekend you took for your birthday $800. Funny, I don't remember being invited to any of these family necessities. Rebecca's composure finally cracked. "You make good money, Nat. It's not like you can't afford it." Bingo. The truth at last. I make good money because I work 60-hour weeks and haven't taken a vacation in 3 years. I make good money because when Danny's father decided parenthood wasn't for him, I didn't have a family credit card to fall back on. She threw her hands up in exasperation. "So this is about money? This is about respect. And apparently, that's something you can't put on a credit card." After Rebecca left, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called in sick and spent the morning going through 3 years of credit card statements with the attention to detail that made me good at my job. The numbers were staggering. $43,000 over 3 years. For a family that apparently couldn't spare room at the table for an 8-year-old. My phone rang at noon. Mom's number. "Natalie Rose Patterson, you get over here right now." Middle name. She was pulling out the big guns. "I'm working, Mom." "No, you're not. Rebecca told me you called in sick. We need to discuss this family crisis immediately." Family crisis. That's what she was calling it. "Mom, there's no crisis. I simply stopped subsidizing people who treat my son like he's less important than appetizers. Danny is not less important." Then why was he the only child at that table without food? Silence. "I raised you better than this," she finally said. "You raised me to be convenient. There's a difference." "How can you say that? Everything your father and I did was for you girls. Everything you did was for Rebecca. I was the backup plan." The words came out clearer than I'd intended, but they were true. Decades of observation had crystallized into undeniable fact. That's not true. Mom, when Rebecca needed money for real estate school, who paid? When she got divorced and needed a cosigner for her apartment, who helped? When her boys needed tutoring, who covered it? Your family. When have you ever helped me? The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. You're stronger than Rebecca. You've always been more capable. And there it was. The excuse I'd heard my entire life. Strength isn't a reason to be treated as less valuable. Natalie, if you don't restore that credit card and apologize to your family, you can forget about being welcome at family events? An ultimatum. How predictable. You know what, Mom? I think I'll take that deal. I hung up before she could respond. 30 minutes later, as I was researching summer camps Danny had never been able to attend because my discretionary income went to other people's restaurant bills, my phone buzzed. Rebecca. Mom's crying. You broke her heart. It's crying. Me. She broke mine first. The difference is, mine was 8 years old when it happened. My phone didn't buzz again for the rest of the day. That evening, I did something that felt revolutionary. I calculated our actual budget without the family drain. The numbers were remarkable. Without Rebecca's shopping addiction and Mom's guilt-induced fine dining, I had an extra $1,000 per month. $1,000 that could go toward Danny's education, our vacation fund, experiences that actually mattered. Mom, what are you working on? Danny asked, appearing in his pajamas. Planning some fun for us. What would you like to do this summer? We spent an hour going through camp brochures I'd collected but never could afford. Photography, robotics, adventure programs where kids actually got to be kids instead of afterthoughts at family dinners. Can we really do all this? He asked. We can do whatever makes you happy. As I tucked him into bed, Danny looked up at me with those serious eyes. Mom, are you sad about Grandma and Aunt Rebecca? How do you explain family betrayal to an 8-year-old? Sometimes, sweetheart, people show you who they really are. When they do, we should believe them. Will we see them again? That depends on whether they remember how to treat people with kindness. The next morning brought a series of increasingly desperate messages from various family members. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly concerned about family unity. Mom's church friends calling to tell me how devastated she was. But the message that really caught my attention was from my nephew Tyler, Rebecca's 12-year-old. Aunt Nat, Mom says you're not family anymore, is that true? Out of the mouths of babes. I called Rebecca immediately. You told your children I'm not family anymore? Well, you're the one who abandoned us. I set boundaries. If you can't tell the difference, that explains a lot. What do you want from us, Nat? Such a simple question. Such an impossible answer for someone who'd never learned to value anything she couldn't control. I want my son treated with the same love and respect you show your boys. That's it. Fine. Come to Sunday dinner and we'll make sure Danny gets fed. The condescension in her voice was breathtaking. Rebecca, the fact that you think feeding my child is some kind of generous concession tells me everything I need to know about how this family sees us. So what? You're cutting us off forever? I'm choosing my son's dignity over your convenience. If that feels like being cut off, maybe examine why. 3 weeks passed in blissful quiet. No emergency calls about Rebecca's car trouble, no guilt trips about Mom's loneliness, no requests for financial bailouts disguised as family obligations. For the first time in years, I remembered what it felt like to live my own life. Danny and I fell into new routines. Dinner out twice a week just because we could. Weekend trips to museums and parks without checking my account balance first. Ice cream on Tuesday afternoons for no reason except that he'd had a good day at school. You seem different, Mom, he observed one evening as we walked through the botanical gardens. Different how? Happier. Like you're not worried about something all the time. Smart kid. Too smart for his own good sometimes. That's when Rebecca showed up at my office. Jennifer, my assistant, buzzed me around 3 o'clock. There's a woman here to see you. Says she's your sister? She looks desperate. Rebecca had been crying. Her makeup was smudged, her usually perfect hair disheveled, and she clutched her purse like a lifeline. Nat, we need to talk. This is my workplace, Rebecca. Please, just 5 minutes. I led her to the small conference room and closed the door. Through the glass walls, I could see my colleagues pretending not to stare. What do you want? I want my sister back. Interesting strategy. Appeal to sentiment after years of taking advantage of it. Your sister was never here, Rebecca. Just a convenient ATM with good credit. Mom might lose her apartment. That sounds like a budgeting problem. The boys might have to change schools. Public school never killed anyone. How can you be so cold? How can you be so entitled? The silence stretched between us. Outside, I could hear the normal sounds of office life continuing while my family's drama finally reached its conclusion. We can't afford anything without your help, she finally admitted. Then maybe you should have thought of that before treating my son like he didn't matter. Rebecca's face crumpled. What do you want us to do? Grovel. I want you to leave my office and figure out how to be adults. Have you ever experienced that moment when you finally realize your worth? When you stop accepting treatment you wouldn't tolerate for your own child? Drop your predictions in the comments below about what you think happened next. Because what came after this surprised even me. The final confrontation came 2 weeks later, on a Saturday morning. I was making pancakes with Danny when I heard familiar voices arguing in the hallway outside my apartment. Just knock. She has to listen eventually. What if she calls the police? She won't. She's not that heartless. Actually, I was seriously considering it, but Danny was flipping pancakes with the concentration of a master chef, and I didn't want him traumatized by watching his grandmother get arrested for harassment. I opened the door before they could knock. Ladies. Mom looked awful. She'd lost weight. Her usually perfect hair was unkempt, and her clothes looked like she'd been sleeping in them. Rebecca stood behind her like a bodyguard, but even her real estate agent composure was cracked. Natalie, please. We need to settle this, Mom said. Come in, but keep your voices down. Danny's making breakfast. They followed me into my small living room, both of them looking around like they'd never seen my apartment before, which, to be fair, they probably hadn't paid much attention to during their 3 years of spending my money. Nice place, Rebecca said awkwardly. It's what I can afford without subsidizing other people's lifestyles. Mom perched on the edge of my sofa like she was afraid of contamination. Honey, I need you to understand our situation. I understand it perfectly. You spent money you didn't have, and now you want me to fix the consequences. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple, Mom. For 3 years, you treated my credit card like a magic money tree. Now the tree's gone, and you're surprised there's no fruit. We never meant to take advantage, Mom said weakly. Intention doesn't change impact. The silence stretched uncomfortably. From the kitchen, I could hear Danny humming while he cooked, completely oblivious to the drama unfolding in our living room. What do you want from us? Mom finally asked. Nothing. I don't want anything from you anymore. Rebecca leaned forward desperately. Then what will it take for you to forgive us? I studied their faces, Mom's desperation, Rebecca's panic, and realized something profound. These women had spent my entire life teaching me that love was conditional on my usefulness. Now that I was no longer useful, they were discovering what love actually looked like when the conditions were removed. You can't earn forgiveness for something you don't understand you did wrong. We understand, Mom started. No, you don't. You understand that your money tree dried up. You don't understand that watching my son sit hungry while other children ate was the moment I realized you never actually loved us. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. That's not true, Mom whispered. When was the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you asked about my job, my dreams, my life? When was the last time you treated my son like he was as important as Rebecca's boys? They couldn't answer because the answer was never. Here's what I've realized, I continued, my voice steady, despite the emotions churning inside me. For 35 years, I thought I had a family. What I actually had was an arrangement. I provided financial support, and in return, I got the privilege of being tolerated. Natalie, that's not fair, Rebecca protested. What's not fair is spending 3 years watching you exclude my child from family events while spending my money on luxury items. I stood up and walked to my kitchen window, looking out at the small herb garden Danny and I had planted together. Just the two of us, creating something beautiful, without anyone else's help or criticism. The difference between us, I said, turning back to face them, is that I know how to love someone without expecting anything in return. You've never learned that skill. Mom's face was pale. We love you. You love what I provide. There's a difference. So what happens now? Rebecca asked. Now you learn to be adults. You budget your actual income instead of mine. You make choices based on what you can afford instead of what you want. And us? Our relationship? I looked at these two women who'd shaped my understanding of family for decades and felt nothing but sad relief. There is no us, Rebecca. There never was. There was just me giving and you taking until I finally ran out of things to give. They left 15 minutes later. No dramatic scenes, no slammed doors, just the quiet realization that some relationships can't survive equality. After they were gone, Danny appeared in the doorway holding a perfectly golden pancake. Mom, who was here? Nobody important, sweetheart. Just some people who got lost. 6 months later, I'm sitting in the Capitol Grill with Danny, watching him confidently order his own meal from the menu. We come here twice a month now, just because we can. Just because he deserves to feel important. Mom, can we get dessert? He asks, cutting his steak with the confidence of a child who knows he matters. We can get whatever you want. The financial freedom is remarkable. Without the constant drain of other people's emergencies and entitlement, our budget has room for the life we actually want to live. Danny's in robotics camp this summer. We're planning a trip to Disney World for Christmas, and his college fund grows every month. But more important than the money is watching Danny hold his head higher, speak up for himself, and never again doubt that he deserves a seat at any table. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "This is your mother. I've been thinking about what you said. Can we talk?" I stare at the message for a moment, then delete it without responding. Some bridges are meant to be burned, especially when the other side never bothered to maintain them in the first place. "What are we celebrating tonight?" the waiter asks, noticing our good mood. "Freedom," I tell him, watching Danny's face light up. "We're celebrating freedom." The waiter brings Danny an extra scoop of ice cream with his chocolate cake, just because he asked politely. Simple kindness from a stranger, something my own family never mastered. As we drive home, Danny chatting excitedly about his upcoming camp, I realize this is what victory looks like. Not revenge, not reconciliation, just the quiet satisfaction of choosing yourself and the people who choose you back. I never did find out how they managed to pay that restaurant bill, and honestly, I never cared enough to ask. A year later, I run into Rebecca at the grocery store. She looks older, tired, but there's something different about her too. Less of that entitled shine, more of the worn edges that come from actually working for what you have. "Nat," she says, stopping her cart next to mine. "How are you?" "Good. You?" "Getting by. The boys are in public school now. It's actually fine." I nod politely and start to move past her. "Nat, wait." Her voice is different now too, smaller. "I wanted you to know I got a second job. Part-time, but it helps." "That's good, Rebecca." "I never thanked you." I stop. "For what?" "For teaching me that nobody owes me anything." It's the first genuine thing she's said to me in 35 years. "Take care of yourself," I tell her and mean it. As I drive home, I realize that somewhere along the way, the anger has faded into indifference. They're not villains anymore, just people who made choices and lived with consequences. Same as everyone else. Danny's waiting for me with his latest robotics project, eager to show me how the gears work together. We spend the evening on the living room floor, building something complex and beautiful with patience and precision. "Mom, why are you smiling?" he asks. "Because we're exactly where we're supposed to be. And we are. In our own space, with our own money, making our own choices. No debt, no drama, no obligation to people who confuse tolerance with love." Danny's 9th birthday party is everything I wanted it to be. 15 of his classmates in our local park, a chocolate cake from the good bakery, and games that last until sunset. Real friends, real laughter, real celebration of a child who knows he's valued. "This is the best birthday ever," he tells me as I tuck him in that night. "You deserve the best birthday, and the best year, and the best life. Do you think Grandma and Aunt Rebecca miss us?" It's the first time he's mentioned them in months. I think they miss what we provided, but missing someone and loving someone are different things. "I don't miss them," he says matter-of-factly. "Is that bad?" "No, sweetheart, that's honest." After he falls asleep, I sit on our small balcony with a glass of wine, looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow we leave for our Disney World trip, just the two of us, paid for with money that used to subsidize other people's dreams. The freedom is intoxicating. Not just financial freedom, but emotional freedom. Freedom from guilt, from obligation, from the exhausting work of trying to earn love from people who were never capable of giving it. My phone stays silent these days. No emergency calls, no guilt trips, no demands disguised as family loyalty. Just peace. The woman I was a year ago would have been terrified of this silence. The woman I am now treasures it like the gift it is. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to accept anything less than respect. Sometimes the greatest victory is walking away from people who can't recognize your worth. And sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. Even when that family is just you and one 8-year-old boy who deserves the world. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories about finding the courage to choose yourself and the people who truly value you. Remember, you teach people how to treat you. And you always have the power to change the lesson. The best revenge isn't getting even. It's living well. And we're living very well indeed.